Hi, and welcome to Creation versus Evolution, Episode 2. So in this episode, it's going to be more of a talk over anything else because we're going to discuss what we talked about in the previous episode. So the previous episode was about the first 10 billion years on the evolution side, which I chose as the Big Bang Theory, because the Big Bang Theory and the evolution theory go very well together. It's somewhat logical because you go from this little start of particles exploding into the known universe, and then our planet, our solar system and all. And then the evolution theory goes from the Earth into every biological living being coming to life. So I like to relate those two together because they work together. So we talked about how much that theory, the Big Bang Theory, doesn't make sense. It's not accurate if you look at it in a scientific, logical way, because normally in science, in true science, observational science, we know that you can't have anything if you have nothing. So anything can come from nothing. That's why we have this saying, nothing comes from nothing. So the Big Bang Theory kind of disproves that. So it disproves what it claims to be because it claims to be science. So that is one thing that we talked about in the previous episode. And so you see how that makes no sense, how nothing can come from nothing. And then it says that two particles appeared out of nowhere. And then everything that we see came from actually one particle, infinitely small particle, full of energy and heat and all that. And then I talk about how much that makes no sense because you can't have heat without movement, and you can't have movement without time. And then there's like matter. This particle should be material. You can't really have material when you have nothing, and you can't have material when there's no space, and you can't have space if there's no time. We talk about how much space, time, and matter are all related. You can't have space without matter, and you can't have matter without time, and you can't have time without space, and you can't have matter without space. We talk about all that. Yeah, and then we go into the creation of the making of Earth, and we stop there because that's where the first 10 billion years stop. And I wanted to stop there specifically because we are going in order in Genesis. Okay, so I have my Bible here, and I'm going to read Genesis 1 verse 1 to 5 because that's what marks the first day. So 1 to 5 is the first day. So I'm going to read that. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form, and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. So I'm reading from the King James Version because I like the King James Version. So we talk about how Genesis makes much more sense. We tend to say that the Bible does not make sense, or we tend to want to disprove the Bible or let go of the Bible for what men says is the actual truth of our origins. And this series is more about sharing with y'all where we come from, our true origins, because I think that the fact that we are misconsidering our origins, like our true origins, we tend to observe more bad things happening in our lives, like depression, suicide rates going up, through the roof, actually. And I think it's because we are denying our true origins, and that feel a sense that we have no purpose. And I think it's because we are considering this evolution theory to be truth, which is not. Because if we come from animals, then what is our life worth? We're no more than animals. We are no more than trees, because for some reason trees are alive, which they are not. The Bible correctly says that they are not living beings like animals and humans. They are some kind of alive, but they are not living beings. Like, the biblical term of life is not what is attributed to a plant. I like this doctor. He has a PhD. He's not like a doctor. Jason Lisle. He's an astronomer. He has a PhD in astronomy, and he goes around making talking about our origins, Genesis, how important Genesis is. And I believe that Genesis is truth, because I feel like us as Christians should not be picking and choosing what we feel is truth in the Bible and what is not, because everything in that Bible is true. This Bible right here is complete other truth, and we should learn to consider those facts. Yeah, he said something like, Dr. Jason Lisle, he said something like, people tend to embrace the Bible to the extent where it satisfies them, like where it doesn't make them feel so uncomfortable. And that's very true, because we observe in nowadays people going like, does the Bible really say that about this category, or about this thing, or about tattoos, or about this category of people, about homosexuality, or all those kind of stuff. So if we have laws, why do we have laws if we come from animals? Like, the animals don't have laws. Why do we have laws if we evolved from the animosity that we know from animals? Our laws don't mean anything if we are really animals, because animals don't consider their laws. And that's one thing I wanted to talk about. I also wanted to talk about how much, like, what life means to us. Because consider abortions. Why don't we are very like about abortion. We are very like, we don't want to talk about abortions because we know somewhere deep that it's wrong, because we consider life. But if we were like animals, or if humans are like animals, Dr. Jason Lisle said, like, okay, get rid of spare cats, get rid of spare kids, right? So it's nothing wrong with that. But there is something wrong with getting rid of kids without any reason. And that's because we have a spirit. That's because we have morals. And that does not come from an evolutionary standpoint. I also talked about how the earth came, like how evolution says that there was the universe and then there was earth, but the Bible clearly says that in the beginning, that is time, God made time first. God created the heavens, he created space, and the earth, he created matter. He created the earth in a stable form. He did not, like, it didn't just
come from a bang of two planets or form from residual rocks. And
that's not what happened. God created the earth as the earth because there was water. And the Bible clearly says here in Genesis 2, actually. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So there was water. So that was earth with water. So this last thing I'm going to talk about is time. We tend not to understand time. Just like in the how he says that it was the first day, and we tend to want to extend those years to adapt to the evolution theory. We are not supposed to try to adapt or try to conform one side to the other. The evolution theory is man's word. The Bible is God's word. Those two don't go together. You can't make sense of them. They talk about some kind of theories and they try to disprove the Bible, or not necessarily disprove the Bible, but make sense of the evolution theory in the Bible using theories like gap theories, and or saying that a day to the Lord is like 1,000 years, forgetting that 1,000 years to the Lord is like a day. We tend to not understand time when it comes to God, and that's because God is not affected by time. He made time, so time does not affect him. He made time for us so that we could understand length and measurements, and so that we could fathom in some way a little bit of who he is, because we don't get time still, but we kind of get it. We kind of get it more than we get God. This is something I wrote a very long time ago. It's not great, but I want to share this with you. So it's called time. If time is, then time is a thing, right? If time is a thing, then time has a limit. There is a limit to time. If time is limited, what marks eternity? If time is the real unit of measurement of everything and determines the existence of matter, what determines the measures of time? Eternity requires that something or someone be outside of time, thus not affected by it. It is impossible for our human little minds to ever fathom the greatness of God. We ask ourselves questions like, if God made everything, then who made God? God is the origin of everything and the end of everything all at once. And his being unaffected by time is eternity. So the fact that God is not affected by time, he's the one that marks eternity, because he is, he was, and he will always be. He is eternity. He marks eternity. It's like, speaking of infinity, you never know where it ends, and you never know from where it began, because it never began and it never ended, but it always was there. That's God. Well, that's not God, but that's how God is. He never started and he never ended. He's always been there. It's very hard to explain this, but sometimes when you think about it, you feel your spirit just bubbling inside of you, and that's how I'm feeling right now. We just can't understand it, but somehow our spirit does, because it comes from God, and we are made in his image. We are spiritual beings first before being physical beings. And this series is about bringing us back to God, considering Genesis to be truth, because it is. And this is what the series is about. I'm going to read the last part of it. God is eternity. God made time for men. Time did not make men for God. And men need to make time for God. So this is something I heard from someone. I can't remember. It was an evolutionist. And he said that men made God. Because from evolution, people thought that they needed a superior being to like talk to or something. And I was like, well, that's the dumbest thing ever. Humans, I said to myself, if God does not exist, humans are the dumbest thing that ever existed. But if he does, those who don't believe are doomed. So, and they are the dumbest thing ever. Because if he doesn't exist, then we are so dumb to invent some superior being who is in control of everything. Like, we are the dumbest thing that ever God ever made. Well, see, we're the dumbest thing that ever hazardously came to be. But if he does exist, those who do not believe are in trouble, in big, big trouble. So, because men did not make God, God made men in his image. So, this is what I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to encourage you to consider the Bible truth, because it is. This is the word of God, and he is unchanging, and he is faithful, and he is holy, holy, holy. And knowing the origins of where we come from gives a sense to our life, and gives a sense to the cross, because then we understand why he came into the world to save our lives, because of sin and death. And he came to take away that sin and that punishment of death and hell. So this series is about that. So I am gonna stop here for today. This was just our little talk, and I will be doing this after every episode so that we can go a little bit in depth, in more of a spiritual way, into this thing. And the lighting is much better today. I don't know why my lighting was yellow the other day, but yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. God bless you abundantly, and come back next week. Thank you very much. God bless you. The Christ Soldier is out. Bye. Hi, this is Hortense Keita, the host of this series. If you enjoyed this series, make sure to subscribe and share with your friends. The Christ Soldier is out. Love all and worship one. Peace.